did here. And also Porzingis and whether he feels good.
Are you running pain-free at this point?
Yes.
Okay, that's a really, really convincing yes here. Let's go around the horn.
Like he's on delay.
Lakers and J.J. Redick, you all felt it was happening weeks ago, a bond forged by basketball and wine and a podcast. He's yet to coach above youth basketball level. Brooklyn Basketball Academy, fourth graders, beating the 2-3 zone, is what he said on their website. We've seen a long list of players go straight to coaching. Jason Kidd in the finals this week, an example of one. Steve Nash, not in the finals this week, nor coaching anymore. An example of another. Bill Barnwell, around the horn to you. How does Redick and the Lakers fit?
Surprisingly well, and I want to invoke a Lakers coach from the past, a legend in Pat Riley, who had no coaching experience when he was a Lakers announcer. There was a bicycle accident, there was some promotions, he became an assistant coach.
He became an assistant coach, though. That's the one difference there.
Sure, but then he became the head coach and the rest was history. This is a guy who was brought in for his knowledge, his experience, and his insight as a commentator. And with Redick, we know he has the LeBron James connection, but I'd also say the reality is they need to take a big swing on someone out of the box. There's not that ideal dream coaching candidate available on the open market, and this is a team that has been basically anonymous for the last 4 seasons, with LeBron James and Anthony Davis making more conventional coaching hires.
Wait, the Lakers are anonymous? We never talk about the Lakers? Well, I hear what you're saying, but Redick is for a bigger name than Darvin Ham, yes, but it's not like they're bringing in Pat Riley again. Kevin Blackistone, to you on this hire.
Well, as you mentioned before you got into this segment, I mean, we've seen this before in the NBA. It's been going on for a long time where a player, a great player, will get a head coaching job before that player has coached before. Steve Kerr comes to mind. Of course, he took over a great team. Mark Jackson, even before him. Way back in the day, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. I mean, a lot of players have done this. Sometimes it has worked. Most of the time it has not worked. So they've got their fingers crossed on this. But let's not pretend like J.J. Redick doesn't know the game of basketball. I mean, he played for arguably one of the greatest college coaches of all time in Coach K. I mean, he played for some outstanding coaches within the league. He is a player. He is a survivor. He seems like a smart guy. He seems like a guy that people have liked. He's been respected. He's had to go through fires before. So I don't mind this hire for the Lakers.
Emily Kaplan on the idea of Redick and Lakers.
I want to support something that Bill said because somebody's got to do it. The LeBron James connection. At least they can stop pretending to hide their biases. You hire his buddy, you're probably going to draft his son too. This team goes as LeBron James goes. Now, as far as his no coaching experience, just coaching kids, it reminds me a lot of when Martin St. Louis was hired by the Montreal Canadiens, having only coached his son's junior team. There's something that St. Louis and Redick have in common. They both had to fight for everything they ever had in their career. St. Louis is the best undrafted player in NHL history.
Okay.
So when you get an all-time great like Wayne Gretzky, when he tried to coach, he has a hard time explaining things of like, why can't you just do this? Why isn't it easy for you? J.J. Redick obviously sees the game in a different way. I think he'll be a good teacher.
Your overall review of the St. Louis coaching with the Canadiens, Emily Kaplan.
Yeah, well, the Canadiens are a team that is all-time great. A team like the Lakers that we do talk a lot about.
But the wins, where are the wins is what I'm asking.
They're in their process. They're in a rebuilding phase. They've made a lot of progress.
Okay, all right. Rita Kimes to you.
Well, Emily just made a comparison to another sport, hockey. I'll draw a contrast with a different sport, football, because we all remember when Jeff Saturday, our colleague, was hired by the Colts as their interim head coach. The reaction was almost universally panned, a lot of skepticism and criticism, and I would contrast that with the reaction, which has now been percolating for a while, to this news with JJ. And I think it's very telling. A lot of that has to do with the fact that in basketball, as you said, as everyone has laid out, there is precedent, both good and bad, with coaches players making the jump with very little or no experience. But I would argue this, another thing that's very important in basketball, and perhaps why he's not getting that Saturday-like reaction. It seems to me that in the NBA, it's very hard to predict who's actually going to be good at this based on their credentials. I remember when Darvin Ham was hired for the Lakers, it was almost universally praised. He had the bona fides. He had the experience. He came from a winning team. and it didn't work out. So I looked at JJ, and I'm not to say that his lack of experience is a plus. It's not, or that his work ethic isn't a positive. It is. But rather to say, I would balk at drawing any large sweeping conclusions
about
what
NBA
he's going to
coaches.
do beforehand.
Yeah. In fact, go look at the NBA Coach of the Year award through the years, and that coach who won it, there's a firing typically within 2 or 3 seasons as well.
Yeah.
NBA Finals preview now. Let's go. Check out media availability for Kristaps Porzingis today. Beautiful shot. Yesterday, we heard his unique optimism.
Are you 100% right now?
How you doing, guys? Good question. I don't know. We'll see.
Today, he did say he will play, though. KB, how do you interpret it all? And then after that, how crucial and impactful is Porzingis in this series for Boston?
Well, if he doesn't know whether or not he's 100%, that probably means he's not 100%, and that's not a great shot right there of him walking in those slides. I hate slides, by the way. But what impact can he have for the season? This, I mean, obviously he gives them size, and they need that going up against 2 guys who have been playing out of their heads in the paint right now in Gafford and Lively. But overall, he's not going to win this series for the Boston Celtics. It's going to be Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and whether or not they can play consistently for every single game, so that we don't come on this show and say what happened in Game 2.
I hear you.
And that will be the question. And when you look at the numbers that he's brought to the Celtics and how they've responded as a team to those numbers, it's almost negligible, the impact that he's had on
But
the
you're
court.
thinking the defensive presence, maybe he can get in the way of some of those alley-oops. We've seen Dallas run so well this postseason. Emily Kaplan, what you heard from Porzingis and the impact he could have.
I'm not going to make the comparison to my sport because I know too many hockey comparisons. You hate that as much as Kevin Blackistone apparently hates slides.
A hockey guy would not even tell you. He'd only release 50% of his body. It's either the upper half or the lower half. That's all we would know from a hockey guy.
Exactly. The pause told us everything, as did when he said, like, the extra days of rest are helping us. So that tells us that he's not 100% clearly. I think that he is an X factor in this series because he's going to give them some offensive flexibility. But as for defense, you talk about him going up against Lively. I mean, Lively absolutely dominated the Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert, in the Western Conference Final, going 16 for 16 against him. So I'm not sure how much better Kristaps Porzingis is going to be against him, especially if he's not fully healthy.
Times, your view of this.
He's not the most important factor. It's the 2-star duos. But in a series that I believe is pretty evenly matched, he could be the player, the factor who puts Boston over the edge because of his ability to affect the game on both sides of the floor. Mavs defense has been fantastic in the postseason, near the rim, allowing less than 60% shooting. But they have not been stressed by a shooting big, like Kristaps, who of course creates incredible spacing. On the other side in the postseason, Boston has allowed over 70% shooting near the rim. That was 64% during the regular season. Kristaps himself allowed 60%. So he gives them a lot of defense near the rim that's going to be pivotal against
One
the
deduction. There was a shooting big in the previous series, some had pointed out, Karl Anthony Towns, who did stretch, but still, because he couldn't hit the broadside of a bar. And
He didn't stress them.
Bill Barnwell.
That's for sure.
Stretched, but didn't stress. I misheard that. There you go.
Sorry.
Bill Barnwell, to you.
Everyone's talking about what's going to happen in the paint when the Celtics run defense. I think what's even more important is what happens away from the paint with the Mavs pick and roll. It's an essential part of their offense, something LeBron James and JJ Redick talked about on their podcast this week, and how you defend those pick and rolls. You typically want to blitz the pick and roll with Luka Doncic. That's the way you want to attack them. Celtics, not really a team that blitzes pick and rolls very often. They want to play back. They're more passive. I think the Mavs are going to challenge KP very early in this series, even at start of game 1. I think you want to see if he's healthy.
Sure.
Challenge him to cover Luka one-on-one. Get the ball to life. Get the ball to other players in the Mavericks roster.
Storylines.
I feel like that's the essential
We're
thing
still
here.
in the preview to the preview range. So when we get to the preview, finally, and this series starts, we'll explore more of the storylines. One more story here. Liberty Sky, 82-71, 2 minutes to go. New York in the lead. And then this happened. No one was really sure what happened, but it happened.
Chicago Sky, we got a technical foul, 2 called, and a double tech. Lady Hamilton's out of here.
It wasn't Lady Hamilton. It was Angel Reese. It was a word and a wave. So nobody knew, including the broadcast, what was going on. No explanation after the game from the referees. And then Reese not available after the game either, or did not make herself available after the game. Today, the league rescinded the second technical. Can't rescind the ejection. Emily, is an explanation needed?
Yeah, it is, because that's one of the softest call-outs I've ever seen. I mean, this is not even a warning in the NBA. The ref also needed talking to because the WNBA is way more scrutinized now. We can't have that. As for Angel Reese, she's a lightning rod, so everything she does is going to be sensationalized. This was a reputation call. But what we should be talking about is the fact that she was 3 for 12 shooting in this game, and her team stunk for long stretches, and this was a meaningless minutes of the game because they were already out of it.
Here, I'll turn to Mina. A reputation call. Everything from this past weekend, and her words of, did it apply in the referee's head here while ejecting?
It's possible. Obviously, they did walk it back, and I think that highlights one of the benefits of all of this discourse, as toxic as it has been at times. More attention means better officiating for the WNBA going forward. More scrutiny over bad calls like this. I think that's a good thing in this case.
Bill Barnwell, do you believe the last weekend made this ejection happen last night?
I don't. I think this was just a overly judicious ref. The WNBA rulebook is clear here. It says assessment of technical fouls should be avoided wherever and whenever possible. Can you watch that clip and say there was any effort to avoid calling a first technical foul, let alone a second technical foul from that clip? Absolutely not. That is not how the game is supposed to be officiated, even by the WNBA's rules.
KB.
I've said it over the years about the college game. I've said it about the WNBA. The women's game has progressed. The officiating has not. They need to get up to speed.
Do you sense, and I know maybe you weren't on a call this week about this, but that a league could make a call to say, this weekend, what just happened, we can't have that happen again, blow the whistle quicker?
Absolutely. To Mina's point, they need to get up to speed. They need to correct the errors that they're making.
There were 7 technical fouls called last night. Kalia Copper got one. Here's what that looked like. Natasha Cloud got one. Here's what that looked like. It was for clapping. Diana Taurasi, no technical for her on the bench for responding to that, but there were magic words if you're a lip reader. This was in a matchup between Skylar Diggins and Taurasi. The heat between them has gone on for years. That's a big deal, but hasn't been made into a national incident, one might observe as well. Seattle rolled Phoenix in this game. For the season, 31 technicals, 2 ejections, 4 flagrant ones. Last year, there were 65 flagrant ones. So big deals, but again, not national incidents for all. We'll be back. Buy or sell next. Preview for the Stanley Cup Final.
Playing a team that has a ton of Stanley Cup Final experience, they were just there last year. Is that an edge that you guys have to overcome, and how do you do that?
I don't know how much experience is beneficial. You can ask the Buffalo Bills how important Super Bowl experience is.
Whoa! Buffalo Bills catching strays. Florida's final experience and motivation and pressure after coming off a loss, dude. And Edmonton's pressure when it comes to the weight of a nation. Emily, how do you see the tensions impacting the series?
So I think that playoff experience is important, but you don't necessarily need to get to 4 rounds to win the 4 rounds before. I think the biggest thing that the Panthers learned last year against Vegas is how important it is to be healthy. I mean, by the end, Matthew Tkachuk couldn't even get out of bed without help from his brother. 3 of their defensemen are so banged up, including Aaron Ekblad on a bum foot, shoulder, and torn oblique. So they said the biggest thing they learned against Vegas is not losing, just the fact that they're healthier this time, and that's why they're going to win.
Right, okay. So getting to a final and losing, you don't consider bad experience. You don't think they should be pouting over a loss and spreading the dreary wearies all over the place. Mina Kimes, to you.
Playoff experience, I think, is the key word because the Oilers have playoff experience, right? They've been to 2 of 3 conference finals recently. I don't think there's some arbitrary distinction where if you last a week longer, suddenly you're so much more qualified to win. Obviously, that wasn't the coach's point. He was just making a joke. I think far more important is that they have 2 of the leading goal scorers in the postseason.
And how should Bills fans feel hearing that just dropped on them? They're used to it, but just it wasn't even fair. Bill Bardwell, to you, how should Bills fans feel?
Thurman Thomas does not need to be involved with the Stanley Cup Finals. Give him some time off. I do believe this matters, and I can prove it with Oilers history. I don't even have to involve the Bills. Last time the Oilers were in the finals, they played a Hurricanes team that had made it a few years earlier, and the Oilers made it and lost in the final to the Hurricanes. Go back to the Gretzky era. The Oilers in that first final they made, blown out, won one game, lost one game in the first 3 series, then got swept in the finals by the Islanders, who were winning their 4th consecutive final. With that experience, Oilers made it back the next year, and they started their own dynasty. So I do believe there is something special making it to that final round.
Very well argued. And Mr. Blackstone.
No, experience. Who cares? And he's right about the Buffalo Bills. I remember having to sit through those 4 Super Bowls with the same team, knowing that they're going to go down. But I'll say what's going to be most important in this series is going to be power play, because the Panthers they create more penalties for themselves than anybody in the playoffs, and we're second during the regular season. And who has the best power play going? The guys on the other side, the Oilers. And I think that they can absolutely exploit that.
Real quick, Emily, on Edmonton and the weight of an entire country in Canada. That's something Americans say. Is it something that Canadians feel? Do you see Vancouver fans being like, you know what, I'll root for Edmonton in this final?
Yeah, no, definitely not Calgary. That's their biggest rival. Vancouver,
Calgary, no.
And then Zach Hyman, who's from Toronto, played in Toronto. He's like, trust me, Toronto's not rooting for us.
We'll move on. Buy or sell 2.
They might root for McDavid, though.
CJ Stroud on Aaron Rodgers.
I'm going to have Aaron Rodgers' career, or I'm going to have Eli Manning's career. Who career are you taking?
You want the rings, dog. I think what it is that I've talked to Tom about this, because Tom Brady's he's a good mentor to me. We don't know how Aaron Rodgers treats his teammates, but you can guarantee that Tom Brady treats his teammates right because how he got them rings. I'm a student of the game. Stafford a dog.
He is a dog.
No, you don't understand, bro. You give Matthew Stafford a chance like Aaron Rodgers, I guarantee you might have had more rings, for sure.
All right, here we go now. That's the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast. CJ Stroud, Stafford, Eli, over Rodgers. Mina, how'd you hear it?
I hear all the answers saying more about CJ Stroud than Rodgers. The rings answer, that's the right one. You want the career with rings. The Brady answer, I think the team may think that was just more about him knowing Tom Brady and praising him. And the Stafford thing, CJ Stroud, one thing that's become very abundantly clear to me listening to him talk, he loves football. And people who love football love watching Matthew Stafford play the position. To me, that answer was about
Bill,
that.
how'd you hear it?
I heard it as a little bit of history being altered. I know CJ Stroud was a little younger when Matthew Stafford was starting his career. This idea that Matthew Stafford did not have help is total nonsense. He had Calvin Johnson as his #1 wide receiver. Aaron Rodgers, not have anybody as good as Calvin Johnson. Matthew Stafford had 1 top 5 scoring defense over his career, did not win a playoff game. Aaron Rodgers, 1 top 5 scoring defense, won the Super Bowl that year. I don't buy this comparison, I'm sorry.
Kevin Blackstone, how about you?
Well, it's also kind of recency bias, right? If you look at the Q ratings, I'm sure, of the 3 quarterbacks in question, Eli and his brother are very popular on television right now.
Yeah.
Stafford won recently, and that was kind of like a feel-good story. And Aaron Rodgers has just been a disaster for the last couple years. He's been blasted everywhere. His personality.
Or he just didn't play last year as well. Emily
and
Kaplan,
he didn't play
how about
last year, exactly.
I think Blackstone's onto something. I mean, CJ Stroud is 22 years old, and this to me is indicative of how this younger generation might remember Aaron Rodgers. It's not for having that incredible arm. It's the fact that he never won, some of the kooky things he says off the field, and maybe his tenure with the Jets, which is insane for us to think about, but that's what the younger generation
you said he never won. He won 1, right? I mean, but we're still giving him credit for winning. You think he should have won more than 1?
See, they already forgot. I forgot.
You forgot? Oh, you're admitting you forgot. Well, I have to deduct you those points there, Kaplan. Going the wrong way.
Whoa.
Oh, I mean, you have to base the argument on reality here. You can't say he never won. Barnwell's done too. Kimes, Blackstone. That's our showdown. A team in sports, how Oklahoma kept their 4-peat alive. They were on the ropes versus Florida, down 3. Jada Coleman sending Keegan Rothrock's 154th pitch into the stratosphere, the walk-off. So now, no break, no rest. Tonight, the series, Game 1 versus Texas. Of course it's Oklahoma, Texas. So, Mina Kimes, who would you rather be going into this huge matchup?
I'd rather be Oklahoma because of matchups. Texas has been unbelievable, first in batting average, except for when they go up against lefties. It drops to 22nd, and Oklahoma's ace, Kelly Maxwell, well, she's left-handed.
Wow, research. I love it. KB, how about you?
Well, despite the fact that Texas is the only Big 12 team in history to take a series from OU, that's like lightning striking. It's not going to happen again. OU is not going to lose again to Texas.
Because of their experience, which is interesting to me, Mr. Blackistone, because in the previous segment, you said experience, schmexperience. It doesn't matter. You just flip-flopped in one commercial break. We'll move on. Baseball last night, longest ball hit, Bobby Witt Jr., 454 feet. Shortest ball hit, Brenton Doyle, 1 inch. Kevin, which is more impressive?
Oh, it's got to be 1 inch, but more importantly, Mr. Doyle, you have committed a baseball sin. Run out the ground ball. I saw Bryce Harper snatched out of a game because he didn't do that.
Mina Kimes?
Size doesn't always matter in sports. It does here. I'm going with Bobby Witt Jr., who has been absolutely raking this year. This is emblematic of that. It's not even his longest home run of the season.
No, Dynasty League, Keeper League, the next 15 years looking pretty great there. Kevin, the inches you needed were everywhere. Mina Kimes, take the FaceTime.
Want to congratulate 16-year-old soccer star Lily Johannes, who scored her first goal for the women's national team, fortunately against Korea, becoming one of the youngest players to ever do so. And to me, her success is emblematic of something larger happening in women's soccer. She's from the U.S., but she became a professional playing overseas. I think that's something we're going to see more and more often. It's going to be key to USNWNT's success going forward.
And the youth, very key to the success. Just turning out 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds.
Scramble drill, so we have to make that real because we will have some of that. He's very effective at that. Now, obviously, we want him to, drop back and process and deliver the ball, but he is remarkable when it comes to throwing the ball on the move. So we have to use that as a weapon for us, and that's going to be really good for our defense too.
Back here with the guys, Lewis. Any concerns for Williams, or is this all just part of the process?
No, it's just part of the growth. Look, this was something that Caleb was aware of all during the pre-draft process, was the fact that he wanted to get better in the pocket. And with reps, that will come. His ability to get through progressions, make quick decisions, and not have to have every play be an off-schedule play, that's something that he knows is going to improve, and he wants to improve. And I have look, we haven't even played a game. We haven't even played a preseason game yet. He'll be just fine. He's a spectacular prospect.
All right, let's go to Miami. Tua Tagovailoa and see, that's the word, while waiting on a new deal potentially, has not done 11-on-11 drills in camp. Mike McDaniel asked if that continues, how it could impact the offense.
For me to think, okay, is that even on the radar for being a possibility of an issue like that? I'm not worried about that being the case. I also can't say that wouldn't be the case. I try to stay in my lane to do what Tua's counting on me to do, which is get him better in every way, shape, and form, and that's what we'll be doing today.
Well, should the Dolphins pay Tua top market quarterback money right now?
Well, he's going to be 50 million plus. Is he going to be up there around the 55 or 60? I don't know, Kev. But when you get a 5 in the first number, does it really matter what the second number is? That's what I would say to him. Tua has earned it. The Dolphins have already come out and said they're going to pay him. This offense ran because Tua was so accurate and so precise. He's going to get his bag. Just relax, Tua.
For some, it could matter. I mean, that's somebody else's checkbook. Let's get Shefty in here now. Let's stay on Tua as you take us through the latest on a couple of quarterbacks awaiting deals here.
Well, if it didn't matter, the deal would be done by now. And it's not only not done, but Tua's not going through the 11-on-11 drills right now. So they're not close enough to have him back on the field. But the Dolphins want to get this deal done. Tua wants to get this deal done. But this is a complicated deal, I think in part because of his injury history and some of the things that have happened in the past. So it's up to both sides to figure out a structure that they're comfortable with in terms of guaranteed money to move forward. But look, he's going to be there. They want him there. And now it's up to both sides to figure it out, which is what the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence have been working on doing as well. They have continued to talk, also knowing that this deal is going to get done. Doug Peterson, the Jaguars head coach, said himself recently that he expects this deal to get done, just not done at this point in time. But I think by training camp, the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence are hopeful that this deal will get done. The same is true for the Green Bay Packers and Jordan Love. They both want to get this deal done. It was just over a year ago that the Packers essentially extended Jordan Love, reworked that contract. They want to do it again, especially after the year that he had last year when he looked like one of the best young quarterbacks in football, when it looked like they hit pay dirt again on another quarterback, when it looked like they could conceivably go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love. I don't know if there's any team in the league that has had that type of quarterback continuity success.
To your point, no one made more money in the final 2 months of the season, the postseason, than Jordan Love after what he did, answering a ton of questions and potentially now the next franchise quarterback. Shefty, thank you so much here on the program of NFL Live as we continue. How does C.J. Stroud's new weapon fit into the offense? Will Stroud and Stephon Diggs be the next top duo in the league, or could there be some rocky waters ahead? We'll get into